Under the golden glow of the morning sun, the village of Kofi swayed to the rhythms of daily life. Birds sang in the tall baobab trees, children giggled as they raced down the dusty paths, and mothers hummed soft tunes while pounding yams in wooden mortars. But deep in the heart of Kofi, past the small thatched huts and through the maze of market stalls, stood an old drum, forgotten by time. This drum was no ordinary drum. It was said to have once belonged to Akwu, the greatest drummer who ever lived, and it held secrets that few dared to speak of. Obi, a young boy with curious eyes and a heart as wild as the river that ran beside the village, loved stories about the past. His grandmother, Mama Nandi, told him many tales, but none fascinated him more than the one about the talking drum. "They say it can speak, Obi," she would whisper, eyes wide with wonder, "but only those who truly listen can hear its voice." One day, Obi's curiosity got the better of him. With the sun dipping low in the sky and painting the clouds orange and pink, he crept to the center of the village where the drum sat, half hidden under old woven mats. He ran his fingers over its worn leather, feeling the grooves left by the hands of drummers long gone. Then, in a moment of boldness, Obi struck the drum lightly. Boom, boom, boom. The sound echoed, deeper and louder than he expected. For a moment, everything was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. And then a voice, low and solemn, whispered from the drum, "Heed my warning, for danger comes. The shadows will soon dance, and only the brave will save the village." Obi's heart raced. He stumbled back, eyes wide with fear and excitement. Had he imagined it? Before he could think further, a sudden rustling came from the edge of the village. It was the sound of feet, many feet, pounding the ground, running fast and urgent. "The forest spirits!" shouted Kalu, the village hunter, who had just returned from the woods with a look of terror in his eyes. "They are restless, and they bring warnings of trouble from the east." As the villagers gathered around, Obi knew that the talking drum's words were not a dream. The night would soon bring a test of courage, and he had been chosen to heed the warning. That night, the village gathered around a great fire in the central clearing. The flames crackled, sending sparks into the star-filled sky, while shadows danced along the faces of the villagers. The elders, dressed in bright robes of green and gold, sat close to the fire with serious expressions. Obi stood at the edge of the crowd, heart thumping as he remembered the drum's mysterious words. Mama Nandi was beside him, her wrinkled hands gripping her walking stick tightly. She had heard the whispers of the forest spirits before, back when she was a young girl, and their warnings always meant one thing: danger was near. Kalu, the hunter, stepped forward and raised his spear. His deep voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "The spirits of the East Forest have awakened. They speak of a great shadow, a trickster, who will bring chaos if we do not act." Gasps and worried whispers spread through the crowd. Some villagers exchanged fearful glances, while others clutched their children closer. Obi's mind raced. He wanted to shout out about the talking drum's warning, but felt unsure. Would they believe him, a mere boy? Suddenly, an old man named Babatunde, the village's storyteller, raised his hand. His eyes, sharp and knowing, met Obi's. "There is more to this than the spirit's message, is there not?" he asked, his voice steady. Obi took a deep breath, stepping forward with trembling legs. "The drum spoke to me," he said, his voice quivering but determined. "It said that danger is coming, and that only the brave can save us." The villagers fell silent, eyes wide with astonishment. The elders exchanged looks, their brows furrowed in deep thought. Mama Nandi's eyes glistened with pride and worry. "The talking drum has spoken after all these years," she murmured. "It has chosen you, Obi." Babatunde nodded, stroking his white beard. "Then we must listen. The drum's voice is older than any of us, and its warnings have saved our people before. As the fire crackled and the wind whispered through the trees, Obi felt a surge of responsibility wash over him. The fate of Kofi now rested on his small shoulders. He knew he had to find out what the drum's warning truly meant before the shadows arrived. The next day, the village awoke with a sense of unease. Obi had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The drum's words echoed in his ears, urging him to be brave. "Obi, you must go to the East Forest," Babatunde said, placing a heavy, reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You will find the answers there." Mama Nandi handed Obi a small leather pouch filled with herbs and whispered, "These will protect you from evil spirits. Be careful, my child." Kalu, the hunter, accompanied him to the edge of the forest, where the trees grew thick and tall, casting long shadows across the ground. "Remember," Kalu said, his eyes serious, "the forest is not just home to animals. It holds spirits, both kind and wicked. Trust only what feels true in your heart." Obi nodded, swallowing his fear. He stepped into the forest, each crack of a twig beneath his feet making his heart pound. The air was thick with the scent of damp leaves and the distant calls of birds. As he moved deeper, the light dimmed, and the familiar sounds of the village faded away. Hours passed, and the forest seemed endless. Just as Obi was beginning to doubt himself, he heard it, a soft, rhythmic beat, like the drumming of a heart. Boom, boom, boom. He followed the sound, weaving through the towering trees until he reached a small clearing. There, at the center, was a figure cloaked in a dark robe, drumming on a smaller version of the talking drum. The figure's face was hidden, but the voice that came from it was deep and commanding. "You seek answers, child of Kofi," it said, "but will you heed them when they come?" Obi felt a shiver run down his spine. "I will. I must save my village." The figure nodded slowly and tapped the drum once more. The ground beneath Obi trembled, and shadows began to dance around him, forming the shapes of wild animals and fierce warriors. "The shadow you fear is closer than you think," the figure said. "It wears the face of a friend, but harbors the heart of a deceiver. Remember, not all who smile at you are true." Before Obi could ask more, the clearing dissolved into darkness, and he was alone once more. Obi raced back to the village, his mind filled with the warning from the cloaked figure. The sun was setting, casting long, jagged shadows over Kofi. As he entered the village square, he noticed that people were restless, whispering and glancing suspiciously at one another. "Kalu," Obi called, spotting the hunter near the elders. "I found out more about the danger." Kalu approached with a frown. "What did you see, boy?" Obi took a deep breath. "There is a trickster among us, wearing the face of a friend. We must be careful who we trust." Gasps rose from the crowd, and Mama Nandi stepped forward, eyes wide with worry. "A trickster?" she whispered. Babatunde's eyes narrowed, scanning the crowd. "Then we must find who it is before night falls." The villagers looked at each other with suspicion. Just then, a loud cry erupted from one of the huts. It was Adama, a young girl known for her gentle nature. "My father's charms are gone," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "Someone has stolen them." The elders exchanged troubled looks. The charms were sacred, believed to protect the village from evil spirits. Without them, Kofi was vulnerable. Babatunde nodded. "Search the village. We must find the thief." As people scattered, Obi's mind raced. The drumming voice's warning echoed in his head. "The shadow is close. It wears the face of a friend." Suddenly he remembered how Kalu had looked uneasy when he mentioned the spirit's warnings. A chill ran down Obi's spine. Could it be? Kalu had been acting strangely ever since the spirit's warnings first came. Obi stepped forward, heart pounding. "Kalu," he said, voice trembling but strong, "where were you when the charms were taken?" The hunter's eyes flickered, a hint of something dark passing over his face. I was in the forest, hunting, he replied too quickly. Baba Tunda narrowed his eyes. Is that so, Kalu? The forest spirits do not lie. They warned us of a trickster. Before Kalu could react, Obi pointed at him. It's you! You have been lying to us! The crowd gasped, and Kalu's face twisted into a grin, no longer hiding his true nature. With a wave of his hand, the air around him shimmered, and his form shifted into that of a tall, shadowy figure with eyes that glowed red. Fools! The trickster laughed. You think you can stop me? The village will fall by night's end. But Obi stood firm, clutching the pouch Mama Nandi had given him. Not if I can help it. The trickster leapt forward, moving faster than any human eye could follow. The villagers screamed and scrambled to find cover. Kofi was in chaos, but Obi stood his ground, gripping the pouch tightly in his hand. Obi, be careful, Mama Nandi cried, her voice breaking with fear. The shadowy figure lunged at Obi, but as it drew near, Obi opened the pouch and flung its contents into the air. A fine dust of herbs sparkled as it caught the last rays of sunlight, creating a protective barrier between him and the trickster. The trickster shrieked as the herbs touched him, the shadows around him flickering and shrinking. What sorcery is this? He roared, trying to escape the barrier. Obi felt the courage in his chest swell. It's not sorcery. It's the power of truth and the courage of our people. The elders, seeing Obi's bravery, began to chant an ancient song taught to them by their ancestors. The sound grew louder, and the trickster's shadowy form began to dissolve with every beat. The talking drum's voice echoed in Obi's mind, urging him on. Finish it, child of Kofi. Let the light win. Obi lifted his voice and joined the chant, his clear, young voice cutting through the fear in the air. One by one, the villagers raised their voices too, creating a powerful harmony that surged through the village. The trickster's form wavered, and with one final, agonized scream, he exploded into a cloud of mist that drifted up and disappeared into the night sky. Silence followed, and then a cheer rose, spreading like fire through the crowd. Mama Nandi hugged Obi, tears streaming down her face. You did it, my brave boy. You saved us all. Baba Tunda smiled, pride shining in his eyes. The talking drum chose well, Obi. You have shown us that even the smallest among us can carry the heart of a warrior. The village of Kofi was safe once more, thanks to a boy who listened to the voice of an ancient drum and found the courage to face the shadows. From that day on, the story of Obi and the talking drum's warning was told around fires and sung in songs, reminding all who heard it that true bravery comes from within.